Welcome back to the New Earth Project podcast. Today, joining me, we have Lifting Sage or Andrew and Jake Lowe or Jake Lombardi. And today, we're going to be
Hey,
talking
guys.
about and going in depth into the simulation, what it is, and pretty much like how it came to be and how it works in this reality. So, my first question for you guys is, when did you first start to realize that we came into simulation? Like, I know Elon Musk talked about it a lot and kind of spread that, but curious to see whenever you guys first became aware of it.
For me, it was like when I was diving into Jungian psychology and he was talking about the collective unconscious. And that's where I kind of like was seeing a little bit of like Elon Musk's theory towards simulation into the collective consciousness part. And I haven't really seen too many people like combine those. It's like either like 50-50 we like or some other entity like created a simulation that we're in, or like it was like, or it just didn't happen. We're not in a simulation.
For me,
Well, I understand.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
For me, it started whenever I had like clairvoyant dreams, sort of, and then like it's like like one night I'd have like a clairvoyant dream of like what my next day was going to be, and then like in that moment I would get like instant chills and shit, and I was just like, this is like not right. Like, how do I have the ability to predict like tomorrow's futures, like the timeline, like, and then I started to dive into like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan's podcast, and I'll like listen, and it would just like make a bunch of sense. And then so like time is not like linear. It's like it's like a basically like a circle. Like everything's already happened, and like we're just right now we're in the present moment. It's like right now is now. So like there is no such thing as time, sort of. So like,
so by you having those clairvoyant dreams, do you think you were creating that future in your dreams, or do you think you were just observing the coding that was already written out for your next day?
I'm pretty sure I was observing, but like that makes me feel like so like small and like powerless, like because that makes me feel like everything's already happened, sort of. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like I can't change my reality, but that's not the case. You can change your reality in the present moment. But
So do you think you wrote out your simulation? Like you were like sitting on a astral desk right now, writing out the coding to your matrix?
I mean, shit, maybe honestly, bro.
Like your higher self, right?
Yeah, my higher self's like, I want him to be really bored this day, and then the next day we're gonna have a jam-packed schedule.
Do you think we did that? Like, you think you did that? I think it's like
I don't know.
A little bit of chaos and
a
order
possibility. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't think I can answer that. What do you think? Do you think it's a possibility?
That we written out our own simulation before we came here?
Yeah, that you write your own coding, like, sort of.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And I feel like we write out our own little coding to learn lessons, like to learn soul lessons. So do you think that within like the Earth matrix, so the Earth matrix obviously like has its own coding, and we'll talk about that later, has its own like base code line. So I'm curious to see, like, do we write our own simulation within the Earth matrix, or are we just projections of the Earth matrix coding?
Andy,
Very deep question. That's a
very good question.
Well, and that also goes into like free will, which we wanted to touch up on, and if we can actually interject on our so-called destiny or fate.
Yeah, and this kind of goes into synchronicities too.
Exactly. So how I understand it, our conscious and subconscious, our subconscious is the divine link to the collective, from what I understand at least. And it's our job, if we want to impose our will and impress the subconscious in order to change our fate or destiny.
Ah, okay. So the subconscious is what connects us to the collective.
Yeah,
that would make sense through like all the because a lot of people have similar subconscious programs, but not everybody has.
Yeah, that's why they push so hard to like program your subconscious mind. Okay, that makes sense. And that's how they manifest things into our reality.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Gotcha, bro.
That just gave me chills.
So our collective subconscious is what's creating the Earth mate. Like it's what's creating.
Yeah, it's like what's creating.
Okay. So synchronicity. Do you think synchronicities are kind of like the base coding for the reality? Yeah. So if you're definitely. So whenever you're seeing like synchronicities, you're basically observing the code.
Basically, from what I can observe, it's a pattern that you imposed either like with your will consciously or subconsciously through programming, like what Jake said. And that's the patterns that come up.
That makes sense because we didn't invent numbers or anything. We discovered numbers. It's like they're kind of just like always there whenever whenever it was written out. And so if we're able to see and observe the code of the simulation, does that mean we can interact with the coding? Because we're observing the code.
Yeah,
because we can interact with the code,
then you can definitely change your code.
So do you think that means that we're stepping outside of the Earth matrix that we were the Earth simulation that we were kind of pushed into?
I feel like the Earth simulation, it's like whenever you're unconscious and you don't see any like synchronicities. That's when you're in the matrix, like you're completely you're completely conscious in the matrix, and then you start to take a step outside the box, outside of the matrix, and that's when you start to see these synchronicities, sort of. And then once you see like a certain synchronicity, you can like look up what it means, and then you can like literally start to act, I wouldn't say act differently, but you can become conscious of what the universe is trying to tell you through this specific coding.
Yeah, it's super subjective too. Yeah. So you can create your own meanings.
So we talked about a little bit ago about observing the code, observing like the baseline code through synchronicities. So we're obviously taking a step outside of that Earth matrix. So are we like just upgrading to another simulation? Because there was that point where we weren't able to interact with the code because we weren't conscious of the coding. So now that we're kind of observing the code, are we stepping into another simulation?
As long as we're in like our five senses, I think so. But we like shift paradigms.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit more?
So with like a paradigm shift, it can be anything between your like 4-dimensional thought going out and wanting to change your current paradigm, and then manifesting what you actually want or need by impressing upon your subconscious. That's what I think his name, the guy that he was one of the main guys in like The Secret, which a lot of people kind of like bag on now. Bob Proctor, that's what he really was into from the book Think and Grow Rich. And that's a lot what that book teaches. And there's another book from Napoleon Hill that is called Outwitting the Devil, which is all about like breaking out of this matrix and becoming like more conscious individual.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really good book. I really recommend that one. It's better than Think and Grow Rich, in my opinion.
Have you? Yeah, you've read Think and Grow Rich, right? You read that?
Yeah. I believe that it was really like watered down, and the devil was definitely like they're a lot alike, but this one goes a little bit more in depth about getting away from like drifting and unconscious behavior. So that's kind of like raising your set point, your vibrational set point up just a little bit, so that if you do become unconscious, it's not like you're going all the way back down. It's just back to this little set point. So it kind of like saves in a game.
So do you think a future version of us, or quote unquote future version of us, created the Earth Matrix?
I think it's a possibility, for sure.
That's an interesting question, because I would always think it'd be an extraterrestrial, like outside of us. But if it was anyone, I feel like anyone, like as humans, I feel like it could be us. that makes sense.
Okay. All right, let me introduce a newcomer to the podcast, Lavina or Lumina.
Hi, guys.
It's great to hear your voice again, Lavina.
Thanks.
What's up, Lumina?
Such a beautiful name too.
Thanks. What are you guys talking about? The simulation?
Yeah, we were just talking about like our own personal simulation and if it exists, like if it's just if we're a projection of the coding of the simulation, or if we're able to step outside the Earth matrix and like observe the coding and interact with it.
Oh, interesting.
But
If you guys do think we're in a simulation, what do you think is the point?
To experience it.
Yeah, learn lessons.
To learn.
To feel.
Learn lessons of duality from the third dimension.
Observe its own creation, be a little aperture point as we're observing the cosmic game.
What do you think, Lumina?
So you don't, you think that?
Oh no, and we'll answer your question first. You try not to think about it.
What do you? Yeah. Okay. What do you think that the ultimate goal is? Like, of course, it seems like we're meant to be here experiencing it, but why? What motives do you think that whatever conscious life form, whether it be us or not, that created this simulation, would have for us to be experiencing this? Like, what would be the goal after that goal?
Oh, that is a great question.
You just blew my mind.
Right, because if the simulation is a board game, when you're playing the board game, it's like you follow the rules of the game to win the game. But when you're the one playing the board game, why are you playing the game?
Like being the observer of the game.
To learn more about yourself.
The universe learning about itself.
So that would mean that the universe created the simulation, though. We're assuming that there's a conscious life form, so there's got to be a step in between somewhere.
Higher dimension. Because
simulation implies that there's another consciousness controlling it. Otherwise, it would be like a projection. But simulation implies that there's something conscious behind it. So there's got to be a step
is that
in
conscious?
between.
Is that consciousness? Like, is that conscious being or whatever? Like, is it playing the game, or is it just observing the game that it created?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What if we created the simulation?
Our consciousness.
Right.
Yes.
Do you think you created your simulation, or do you think an outside being created your simulation?
I think there's two answers to that. I think that it's kind of like how the dungeon master holds space in D&D, but then you're still your own character. So I think that like the simulation is a space that exists in and of itself, and then part of the rules of the simulation is that we manifest the way that we interact with it and the way that we perceive it. So I think that we're given some level of free will, but that's within something that is space being held by something else. And that's also, I don't even necessarily believe in the simulation, so that's just a conceptual theory.
So what do you think there
Very
is if it's not like a simulation? Do you think it's just a complete open sea with unlimited free will, or I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I don't have any firm beliefs. I just like to learn things, so I kind of entertain whatever theories come my way just to see if it's cool or not.
Interesting.
Very, very understandable.
Yeah, I don't really have a desire to have firm beliefs either. I just don't really place value on that right now at this point in my life. So I just like to learn everything.
What do you think synchronicities are, Lumina?
I think the synchronicities are just our subconscious interactions with the simulation. It's like if our consciousness interacts with the quantum field, and I think that 5% of what happens in our brain is conscious and 95% is subconscious. But if our brain is directly interacting with the quantum field, and then time and the quantum field are molding the matter around us into the physical reality that we're perceiving, then that would mean that the 95% of our subconscious is doing that as well. There's no reason. In fact, we have lots of reason to believe that our subconscious is more closely connected to the quantum field than our conscious mind is, because it's far more high vibrational, because it's not limited to the constructs that our conscious mind is. So that would mean that our subconscious is mainly what our reality is made out of. So I think synchronicities are just, I think synchronicities are our heart's intention peeking through our subconscious and then being manifested into our physical reality. And I think that it's your subconscious and your heart creating a self-fulfilling prophecy so that your conscious mind will follow the signs that you've set up for yourself. Because I don't think that your heart or your subconscious mind is limited to time the way that your conscious mind is.
That is a lot of information to digest.
Right there. She explained exactly what I was thinking. So beautifully. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you put those words.
You're welcome.
Thoughts in the world.
Beautiful words.
That hyped me up. I got chills and stuff.
I saw you smiling it.
Good.
I saw you smiling and laughing.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's definitely a very interesting field of work with the quantum mechanics and such. So interesting.
Yeah.
So have you guys looked into the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence?
Yes. Oh my God, that has such a huge effect on the matrix.
Yeah. So like, is the Fibonacci sequence like the baseline? I mean, obviously it's the kind of like the baseline coding of life. So would that imply there's simulation, or what would that be?
It's we at least know that if there is a simulation, it wants us to think that that's the base code. And if there's not a simulation, then it's basically the same thing as a simulation, but there's not a conscious life form behind it. So either way, it doesn't matter. And those sequences are obviously really important to life. But I think that it's really cool because if as above, so below, everything big has a small version or whatever the fuck, you know what I'm talking about? That would imply that those sequences manifest in physical and spiritual and mental. So I've recently been pondering if our behavioral patterns and our thought processes also happen in a geometric order. If we could start to predict human behavior, and if AI was coded the same way,
like with using the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes. If behavioral patterns were coded using the Fibonacci sequence, and if we're like that, I mean, our bodies are machines. Are our bodies machines? Are we technology? Is our consciousness, we are literally electric. Is our consciousness being projected into these bodies as part of the simulation? Are the bodies quite literally tools that are meant to technologically project our reality? And that's how the simulation works. Are we just really, really high tech? We don't fucking know.
I think so.
Maybe we're coded with Fibonacci, and that's why the reality that we create and everything physical in it is Fibonacci, because we're coded with Fibonacci.
So the simulation is the Fibonacci sequence.
If that was the base code for the matrix. It's just an interesting theory, because like I said, the only difference between the way that we see the universe and a simulation is whether or not there's a conscious life form behind it, and it was done with intention. Meaning that Catholics are literally believe in the simulation, they just don't know.
Yeah. So do you think there's conscious intent behind what we are experiencing right now?
I know my conscious intent isn't behind it.
Interesting.
I don't know. I try not to think about that because I don't think that that's the point of being here.
What do you think the point is of being here? All of you guys, like, what do you think? What do you think that our purpose is? What is our purpose to exist here? Is it to experience love?
To experience a physical reality. I feel like something physical. But I feel like love definitely could play a part of it to reach that vibration of love. So you're not in that fear-based, low vibrating like states, sort of. You like reach ultimate, like not pure consciousness, but enlightenment. What about you guys?
I kind of want to know what Luna has to say first. I'm curious.
I think it's simple. I just think that things have to happen.
What do you mean by like things have to happen?
What
do you mean by that?
I think that all the constructs we have are just that, things that we're consciously able to perceive. And I think that if you rid yourself of all those constructs, everything about life just seems like it is existing to keep the universe in motion. I think that no matter how we interact with our reality, that things just have to keep staying in motion, and that we're not just us, but everything is just one of infinite possibilities. And where we end up in that and how we feel and how we interact with it is up to us. But I think that regardless of our existence, that things have to happen, and that the purpose of life is just because things have to happen.
Just like the Big Bang happening.
Exactly. It's all happening at once. Things are moving. And everything is going to exist in the fact that everything is moving and everything is happening at once. So, I mean, it's pretty existential crisis, but I don't think that there is a specific purpose other than the one that we desire, because we have the choice to be any fractal of infinite possibilities. So we might as well just do what we want. And that's what free will is. The purpose of life is free will. Things have to move.
Which that expression kind of goes back to the archetypes in the collective unconscious.
What's that?
The Jungian psychology or philosophy about the collective unconscious of these stories that have these characters that are expressions of the universe or our collective unconscious. So like you could be a hero archetype, magician, witch archetype, a like sage archetype, one that gives wisdom and knowledge type of stuff, that expresses through stories and myth, which we are playing a narrative towards the collective. So all expressions of the universe.
What do you think the purpose of our existence is, Andy?
I think a lot like Lumina about that, where it is a little bit outside of our conscious awareness where we can really observe, but it's definitely an expansion of motion by one single point. Have you guys ever heard of like the tree of life and how it started with like the one circle and turns into like the 7 circles of it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the start. So I kind of see the Big Bang as the start of that.
Do you see the Big Bang as like, do you see that as like the geometrical expression of the Big Bang?
Yeah, the mathematics behind it, the coding.
Okay, cool. The numerical. Okay.
And there's something between that and consciousness to where we have multiple cultures throughout the world doing these circles, these 13 circles that connect together, forming the tree of life.
What do you think there was before the Big Bang? Like there had to be something. You know what I'm saying? Was it just a pit of blackness, like
very
space?
Lonely universe.
What?
A very lonely universe.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's just so hard to think about. Like what's before? You know?
You think the Big Bang was real? Because I mean, it's technically still a theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a very well documented, backed up theory, but
yeah. What do they have to do to make it like a scientific law?
Lots of
When
peer
does it come
review and lots of evidence
Oh, okay.
through scientific method.
What do I think was before the Big Bang Theory? Or not the Big Bang Theory,
It's
but
the Big Bang.
not
Yeah.
the show.
So if
The
this
Big
is the
Bang.
Big Bang, if there's like a timeline here, the Big Bang's here. Like, what's before the Big Bang? Like that's
It's hard.
just
It's
so
hard to.
to
It's hard. It's hard. It's. I feel like it's very hard to do that from a linear perspective.
Now we're 3D time.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be beyond that to where there's no time whatsoever.
Yeah. So did time begin to exist? Like, is that when this dimension was created? When the Big Bang happened?
Technically, time can't begin. So that theory that there was nothingness before the Big Bang and before time would imply that it existed simultaneously while time began to exist, because there's not a timeline where it could start.
Yeah.
So did the time just begin, like, physically? Like, that's when it began to express physically?
I think
Big
with
Bang?
consciousness.
Yeah, because well, even I don't think time did begin with consciousness. I think time began with bodies.
That would make sense because
time is part of the collective manifestation of the matrix. It's the glue that holds it's the glue that holds our consciousness together in the quantum field that helps the matter take. That would mean that time is something that was created in the third dimension. So before time was created, there was duality, and before duality, there was consciousness, and before consciousness, there was nothing. So time comes way later in the equation. So the Big Bang, when everything came into existence, would have been something that's currently happening now, and that also never began. It just always was.
So you think there were many Big Bangs, like, throughout? Like, do you think there's many universes or just a single?
The multiverse theory?
Yeah,
The multiverse theory gets really trippy. I try not to think about
it gets
then
extremely trippy.
Weird. Yeah, I get.
Do you want to go it? Should we get weird?
Because the thing
So
about the multiverse theory is that I don't want to get weird.
All right.
You guys want to start disassociating?
It stops at a certain point.
Yeah.
You have to be very grounded to start talking about multiverse. Say again?
If there is multiverses, then it makes the simulation theory a lot more likely.
So do you guys want to talk about the multiverse?
Because
I guess we got to now. I mean, we started talking about it.
I personally don't know that much about it, so I can't speak too much.
Me either. I don't think anybody knows a lot about it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but
I don't either.
Try to talk about it.
Like,
do you think there's like infinite possibilities, like infinite outcomes? The only thing
that I can say is that if the way that we perceive everything in our universe is by, if it's by like the laws of the universe, then that would imply that there is like laws and coding to our universe. And if there's multiple universes, that means that they wouldn't be fundamentally the same as ours. Otherwise, they would mesh together. So that would mean that there's other universal laws as well. And that would make it seem way more like they were all just set up rules and that it was someone's technology.
And there's somebody just sitting behind the computer desk just looking at all these multiverses.
Yeah, right, what if
because
we're just all these different rules game, bro? Like, what if you know how we can play The Sims? Like, what if we are The Sims, like in a computer right now or something?
Literally. If like, universes are different and they have different rules, that would mean that none of them are perfect and that none of them are absolute. So that would mean that there's something far beyond our universal laws. So we definitely would be a simulation. Because the only way that something could seem absolute to us that wasn't actually absolute would be if it was meant to seem absolute and we weren't be able to see further than that. So we were only supposed to interact with a space as big as our universe. So it would be almost like it would, from our perspective, from our consciousness, and as much as we know, if multiverse is real, it would be like, it would seem like simulation was almost 100% real.
Mm-hmm.
That would make total sense.
And that there's absolutely a high power. Top scientists that have been exploring multiverse theory say that if multiverse is real, that there's a higher power. So I think that that's what that means. I think that it means not higher power, but I think it means higher consciousness. That we're just literally technology, if that's real.
Makes sense. And it's like in our reality or our universe, we have like the hermetic laws, and then it would be like different for a different universe. Very interesting.
Right. Because those are only absolute here. So if they were only absolute here and not everywhere, then that would mean that somebody is setting it up so that we can only perceive a universe that has those fundamental laws. And that would mean that there's something smarter than us.
Yep.
That has control of us as well, that set our program to be the 7 laws. So multiverse literally directly implies higher consciousness, that one can't exist without the other.
Oof.
So that would be quote unquote God sitting behind the computer screen, just observing all the multiverses.
God, Tao.
Exactly.
Source.
Whatever you want to call it.
Infinite intelligence.
Right.
So many names.
Do you think we can return to this? Actually, well, technically we are an extension of it. You think we're like an extension of that? I mean, we have to be if it was created. If we created, like if Source created it, are we still like that extension of Source in that simulation?
Maybe once we complete our karmic cycles.
We go back. Do we go back to the computer screen or
take the headset off?
Take the headset off and go take a nap or something, or?
Okay, that was fun. We lived all these different lives.
Oh, dude, my mind is completely blown.
Yeah, same. I'm malfunctioning at this point.
I'm malfunctioning.
Makes you feel so small, bro.
I know the simulation is malfunctioning now.
Yeah. I guess when they talk about surrender, like they keep repeating surrender to it. Just like those experiences.
Like sometimes I low-key just want to die sometimes just to see what happens. Like it's not like a suicidal thing. It's just like what happens to my consciousness after
just that. Curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity killed the cat, bro.
That's a good one. No, that's a good connection. Oof.
Hey Andy, what do you think the purpose is? I don't know if I asked you this. What do you think the purpose of this life is?
Yeah, I don't think I gave a really good answer because I honestly don't know for sure. I'm with you about the lessons, but I'm questioning and open to everything basically. So
what about experiencing emotions?
It's not to work a 9-to-5 job and be yourself.
Yeah, on a floating rock. I don't think so.
Yeah, we're literally on a fucking floating rock in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's just so many systems that were put in.
Think extraterrestrials experience emotions the same way that we do?
To each other through the internet.
I know. Do you think extraterrestrials
would be more 3D?
Oh.
It depends if they're in like the similar situation like us.
Extraterrestrials. Do you think extraterrestrials experience like emotions like we do? Or would they experience emotions a similar way? If they even experience emotions.
Emotionless being, like, I don't know. I feel like they're just emotionless beings. Like, I feel like you can't be a being though without feeling emotions. So I guess that wouldn't even make sense.
They feel like nothing and everything at the same time and understand that duality and be like in a higher state.
Yeah, like I can't even wrap my brain around it.
Guys, emotions are a tool. You can process energetic information without utilizing a tool like emotions.
So it would be a 3D
There's
construct
totally
as a
beings
tool.
that exist.
You said what? It was beyond. I guess I've heard like stories about like people like becoming suicidal and then like they'd kill themselves and like they would still feel like because they would like see like what they would go on to do in their life and like whenever they're not in a physical body and they would still feel like those low energetic states of being just because they realized like what they could have done if they didn't like take their life like from the physical world. So I guess you could still process emotion.
And if you believe in karma and stuff, you would feel it in your next life, I guess, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is super complicated. It's so like you have to think of the biocomponents that go into us experiencing emotion first. That's the first step, is what exactly is emotion in our brains? How does our bodies create emotion? Like there's literally biocomponents that are important to experiencing emotion. And then once you dissociate your body's reaction to the emotion and you realize that the other component is energetic information, because the energetic information is completely intertwined with your body's reaction, suddenly you're not experiencing it. You're just aware of the certain vibrational frequency. And you don't have to be a human to be aware of the frequency. But if you weren't a human and you didn't have the biocomponents, you wouldn't be experiencing it. So the emotions could still technically exist. It just wouldn't necessarily be the same thing. It would be missing part of it. So like trees can process energetic information, but they're not going to experience sadness the way that we experience sadness. So let's say theoretically you are still conscious after death. You would still have an understanding of those frequencies, but you wouldn't be experiencing it the same as if you were alive. So emotions do not directly correlate to emotions do directly correlate to being alive and being a being that has the biocomponents to experience them, and they do not directly correlate to consciousness.
So other beings have their own like definition of emotions based on the way that they're experiencing them.
Anatomically, I think that there's infinite possibilities and that it's totally possible that they have different biocomponents to experience something at least similar to emotions, or at least similar to our emotions.
That would make sense.
Like animals have the biocomponents to experience emotions. So why would we assume that and another being from another planet wouldn't? Because all animals are is a different species than us. And that's all aliens are too, is a different species than us. So we should definitely assume that they may or may not have the biocomponents to experience emotions.
But yeah, just depending on their evolution.
Yeah, or just, I don't know what they are. There's probably infinite possibilities of conscious life forms. And regardless of whether or not they can experience emotion the way that we do, they can still process energetic information, because that is fundamental to a conscious life form.
That cleared everything up. That actually explained it beautifully. Wow.
Good stuff, Lumina.
Wow.
Thanks.
I'm learning so much.
Lumina, do you think you created like your own simulation? Well, assuming that simulation is real. You think you created your own simulation, or are you a projection of the Earth matrix or Earth simulation?
I don't know. I try not to care about it.
Sweet.
I think it could be either. I think that the point is for me to not understand.
And to just experience what you came here to experience.
Yeah, I don't know. I try not to think about purpose either. It seems weird. It seems like I should just be and stop trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it would be much
because when you
ego.
It makes things simple.
When you exist in like a Yeah, it does. Information comes to you. If you're in a resting state, information comes to you. Like intelligent people seek information and wise people experience it.
Yeah, I feel information only
So
really
it's-
comes in whenever you're in a relaxed state.
Exactly.
That's
so I don't
really
care
all
anymore.
it ever comes in.
Is that where you became so knowledgeable, Lovina? Just through your
What?
experiences? Is that where you became like so knowledgeable through you'd say through your experiences, or would you say you seek knowledge?
I don't know. When I try to think of myself in past tense, my mind just kind of goes chaos mode.
I mean, knowledge and experience do equal out to wisdom, so it makes complete sense to be able to be in a resting state, and it's just experience, and you get more wisdom than seeking it out.
Yeah, because whenever you're relaxed, whenever you're in a relaxed state, you're in a higher vibration.
Definitely, because you're not like.
Whenever you're relaxed, you're in the present moment.
Yeah.
You're not out. You're not having anxiety or depression. You're relaxed. You're in a relaxed state. Your mind, body, and spirit are all relaxed. It's in a relaxed state.
If you're like a sponge, if you're like a sponge or like a capsule or whatever, and imagine if we're a doorway and things can only either go in or out. You cannot have two things of equal size going in and out of the door at the same time. So we're either projecting outwards and interacting with the environment around us, or we're allowing information to come in.
That's a beautiful way to put that. That actually made everything connect. Okay.
You guys good with ending the podcast there?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
That was a great
Favorite
discussion.
one.